Right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take a closer look at our last two examples, and we're just going to slightly change a couple of things from what we did previously in example 2 and example 3 to what we're going to do now in this case. So according to data from the National Health and Nutrition Exam Survey, again, the mean weight of 10-year-old boys is 88.3 pounds with a standard deviation of 2.06 pounds. Assume the distribution of weights is normal. So again, remember this case was the one where we had a normal distribution. Right? Suppose we take a random sample of 10 boys. So our sample size in this case is 10. Right? So we check our conditions. Our sample is random and independent. Yes, we are going to assume that that is true unless we are told otherwise. Our distribution is normal. Right? So our sample size does not matter. So we're going to say distribution is normal. So sample size does not matter. Right, a large enough population. 10 times 10 is 100. Right. There's definitely more than 100 10-year-olds, so that condition holds as well. All right, so now we're going to find our normal distribution. So we're going to start by finding our standard error. So we're going to take our mean of 88, or excuse me, not our mean, our standard deviation, our 2.06. 2.06 divided by the square root of 10, and that's going to give us 0.651. Now before we finish this problem off, I just want to compare this a little bit to example 2. This standard error is larger. Than our previous one in example 2 because the sample size is much smaller. Right? Remember, as sample size gets larger, standard error decreases. So in this case, our sample size got smaller, so the opposite happened. If our sample size gets smaller, then our standard error increases, it gets larger. Right? So we have a mean of 88.3, a standard error of 0.651. Again, we're going to do this using StatCrunch. When we are using StatCrunch, remember that we want to be sure that we use this value for our mean, that value for our standard deviation. So again, not our original standard deviation, the standard error that we just found. And we're going to be greater than or equal to 89. And in this case, again, I'm not showing all the details that I showed the first time that we worked through this. So the probability that the sample mean is greater than 89 pounds is about, StatCrunch gives us a value of 14.1%. If we go back and compare this to example 2, in example 2, our probability was only 3.1%. So notice that this is a lot larger, and this is larger than the previous example because of the smaller sample size, which gives us a larger standard error. So it's just kind of worth noting and comparing that changing our sample size, even though our conditions are still met, can definitely change the answers to our problem. That's why when we enter stuff on StatCrunch, we're using our standard error from our specific sample, not our standard deviation from our original population. All right, so we're going to also revisit example 3. So we're going to look again at these home prices. So we had a distribution again that was skewed right. In this case, we're going to take a random sample of 10 homes. All right, if we check our conditions, condition number 1, our sample is random and independent. Yes. Condition number 2, if we have a different shape distribution other than a normal distribution, our sample size has to be larger than 25, right? So our distribution is skewed right, and our sample size is not large enough. Right? Our sample size has to be at least 25. So we fail the second condition. So since we failed the second condition, we cannot answer this question. Right? So we're going to say we cannot answer this question because the central limit theorem conditions are not satisfied. So as you're working through the homework, the only reason I kind of put these last two in here is just do pay attention. Again, a lot of times just to save time, we have kind of glossed over checking our conditions, but as you're going through your problems and working through things in this chapter, if you are asked to check your conditions, make sure you're paying careful attention to your sample size and what we know about our distribution as well.